The quote which John Lennon made to a London columnist more than 3 months ago has been quoted and represented entirely out of context. Lennon is deeply interested in religion and was at the time having serious talks with Maureen Cleave, who is both a friend of the Beatles and a representative for the London Evening Standard. The talks were concerning religion. What he said and meant was that he was astonished that in the last 50 years the Church in England, and therefore Christ, had suffered a decline in interest. He did not mean to boast about the Beatles' fame. He meant to point out that the Beatles' effect appeared to be, to him, a more immediate one upon certainly the younger generation. The article, which was in depth, was highly complimentary to Lennon as a person and was understood by him and myself to be exclusive to the Evening Standard. It was not anticipated that it would be displayed out of context and in such a manner as it was in an American teenage magazine. And in these circumstances, John is deeply concerned and regrets that people with certain religious beliefs should have been offended in any way whatsoever. As a matter of fact, the Memphis concert, which is nearest to the place where this broke out, apparently sold more tickets yesterday than they had done up until that date.
Do you think this will occur?
To introduce Brian Epstein, the manager of the Beatles, at whose request this press conference was called. Mr. Epstein asked me to stress to you all that this was to be a very brief press conference, and he has called it simply to clarify the situation which arose from the now famous foot of credited to John Lennon. May I introduce Brian Epstein?
Thank you. Now, the only reason why I am here actually is in an attempt, to clarify the situation and the general furore which has arisen here. And I have prepared a statement which I will read, which has had John Lennon's absolute approval this afternoon with myself by telephone. And this is as follows.
Mr. Epstein, why didn't John Lennon deny this article or its context himself?
Why didn't he come over here?
Why didn't he do it either here or there?
It was more convenient and more advisable for me, I think, to come over here and assess what the situation was.
He hasn't done it in London either.
No, he's not done it in London. There was a suggestion that he made a tape, actually, in London, but in view of the fact that I was putting out this statement on his behalf this afternoon, it didn't seem to me, or him, or anyone else, that it was necessary for him to make a tape.
Mr. Epstein, most of the criticism has come from the southern Bible Belt, and we're wondering whether you're going to change the itinerary of the Beatles to avoid areas where radio stations are now burning their records and their pictures.
This is highly unlikely.
The attendance at some of the Beatles concerts.
I don't know. I hope not.
Mr. Epstein, the Beatles were protested against in Japan, they were protested against in the Philippines, and now the sales are down in all the cities for this concert. Is this the end of the Beatles?
This is the third time that the Beatles have been to the United States, and quite obviously they're not the novelty which they were in the first place. The sales actually of tickets, I think this is a wrong, this has been exaggerated, because I've been through the figures for many of the concerts, and in fact they're as good as I could possibly have expected. In fact, in many areas they're complete sellouts. And you must remember that the Beatles are not sort of doing ordinary concerts. They're doing concerts this time to enormous auditoriums and enormous stadiums.
They feel terrible being picketed and banned. They were, always adulated, and now people are.
They feel absolutely terrible when you're hustled and moved around, and you're worried that people are antagonistic against you. The business of coming out of Manila was something that they and I will never forget. It was very unpleasant. I don't know. Something similar to last time, I expect.
Epstein, I represent Facebook.
Mm-hmm.
And I believe that John had a perfect right to say what he did say. I think that it's not objectionable to deny him the right to state his beliefs. However, that has nothing to do with the fact that the more careful or more selective who they would
The Beatles are sort of basically very honest people. I don't. Naturally, as one goes on in this business, one learns, and it is unfortunate that this quote and this article appeared in a teenage magazine and was open to so much misinterpretation. When it originally appeared in the Evening Standard in London, nothing happened at all. In fact, there were 4 articles, one on each of the boys, and they were all thought to be of the very best and highest standard. Maureen Cleave is an excellent columnist.
What is Mr. Lennon?
Very genuinely and truly concerned.
Do any of the Beatles have any formal religious affiliation?
No.
Mr. Epstein, could you consider that this is implicitly a criticism of the Church of England, since that is the official state church of England, and we can assume that is...
It is not no, it's not how I go on August the 11th, where the concerts are sold out.
Again,
Is this going to be okay in terms of sound?
Yes.
Okay. Mr. Epstein, the biggest... Mr. Epstein, the Beatles were picketed in Japan, they were thrown out of the Philippines, and now they're being banned in America. Is this the end of the Beatles? Is this hurting them? Do they feel terrible about all this picketing?
I've spoken to many of the promoters this morning, and when I leave here I have a meeting with several of the promoters who are not anxious that any of the concerts should be cancelled at all. Actually, if any of the promoters were so concerned, and it was their wish that a concert should be cancelled, I wouldn't in fact stand in their way.